Welcome back to Third Age Reforged, and I did say that I wanted to get one of the winter sieges out next, and this is it. We have the wintry, snowy version of EDORAS, which is very appropriate seeing as winter is nearly upon us in real life. It's not quite festive, of course, because I have actually heard that they might actually be making like a sort of jokey, festive themed unit model for something like the Snaga, but we'll see if that actually comes to pass. They've obviously got a lot to do anyway, but even so, we've got the sunset, which is rather odd. It's a rather nice sunset considering all the snow everywhere. But yes, this was a replay sent to me by Master Blaster, of course, and I believe it is a 4v3, with the 3 being the defenders, but we'll see that in a moment. We'll go through the attacking armies first of all, of which there are 4. I believe all of them are Isengard as well, but we'll start off with Master Blaster's army regardless, and back here we have the more elite core. We have sort of the berserkers mixed in with the crossbows, the pikes, of course. The pikes and the crossbow combination, very effective for Isengard and always has been. There's also URUK-HAI infantry here, which I believe has got the Nazkai bodyguard mixed in with it. Indeed, there they are. So the Nazkai bodyguard, a brutally effective unit, but they do need to be backed up because they are quite low on numbers themselves. There's also the standard Nazkai. There's even Saruman in there, in the ranks of, well, in the rank and file, I suppose. He would never be seen on the battlefield like this, I don't imagine. We also have Warg Riders over here, just in case the defenders sallied out with any cavalry. I do like this pick, just because it does offer a bit of screening, and of course if the defenders do charge out with cavalry, it can be made to... They can't afford many mistakes, and the Wargs can pretty easily crush lesser cavalry units, provided they get a nice charge off. We also have a couple of units here of Dunland Clansmen and Veterans at the front leading the way. The Veterans are pretty good because they are armor piercing and they are very cheap, and they're not terrible in melee, but they will be overwhelmed by more professional soldiers, of course. But the Clansmen are the lowest tier of Isengard unit, and then we also have some URUK-HAI archers here at the front to soak up some skirmish and to return some fire. Of course, on EDORAS, bringing more than one ram is always recommended because you can knock down the low walls around EDORAS with rams. Much more effective than catapults, which is odd considering catapults are much better on normal settlements. But here we have Tundra's Fox and his army. He's got some half-orc Bane Guard, so that's a shock infantry unit, which is not terrible. The half-orc units are honestly not bad. We also have some URUK-HAI Raiders, so a bit more chaff. They're, I think, more resilient and they have more men in the unit than the Veterans, but they are not armor piercing. Here we have the Veterans, and there we have more Raiders and more Veterans going down. So he's got a bigger army than Master Blaster, it looks like, certainly more spread out. Some URUK-HAI infantry down at the end over there with more half-orc Bane Guard. The snow is rather bright, interestingly enough. And we also have several units here of URUK-HAI archers. So he's gone more for sort of the numbers approach, which the attackers will need. And then back here he's got a unit of Warg Skirmishers, which is another interesting choice, because if they haven't brought any cavalry, the Warg Skirmishers can still be used inside the settlement as javelin units, which I think I do prefer the pick of the Warg Skirmishers over the standard Warg Riders for that reason, because the Warg Skirmishers are not bad in melee either, and they will be enough to bog down enemy cav, while the pikemen over here and crossbows can deal with the cavalry. The Isengard are better prepared than most factions, I think, to deal with a sallying out of cavalry from the enemy. We also have a catapult over here to bombard the position. Very good for the attackers to bring on EDORAS, simply because they can get some very nice shots into the upper sections from the ground. We've also got 2 units of berserkers back here, and the Nazkai bodyguard, of course. And wait a minute, is that standard Nazkai as well? So he has got a nice elite core. So those 2 will be attacking this side, and on the other side we will have CMT-19 playing as Isengard. He's got some Trolls of the White Hand pushing a ram. He's also got 2 units of berserkers. It looks like he's only got 1 ram, mind you, so he's not going to be able to attack the walls en masse like they will be able to on the other side. He's got 3 units of infantry, 3 units of pikes, the 2 Nazkai combination, which you're always going to see from Isengard on the attack, mainly because they don't really have many other options in the very elite tier. They do have the Trolls, but most of the time the Nazkai will be picked because of how effective they are. And over there we have a catapult, and then some berserkers. I think I've already mentioned them, and he's also got a pretty long line of URUK-HAI crossbows. He's got a more quality focused army, certainly, and that means he really shouldn't be going first into this breach, mainly because he only has 1 ram. Behind him, meanwhile, we have the final attacking army being led by Numbers for a Face. It's an interesting name. We have lots of rams over here, so he should definitely be getting up very quickly and trying to overtake his ally over there, to be honest with you. He's also got a lot of trash to carry the ram, so he's got Veterans, Bane Guard, Clansmen. The Bane Guard and Veterans aren't really trash, I suppose, but we also have a catapult, several units of pikes, which can be very useful in this choke pointy map in the late game, and we also have some URUK-HAI infantry, several units of URUK-HAI infantry, archers, well, not the Nazkai, but crossbows, Trolls of the White Hand. I'm sure the Nazkai are around here somewhere. It doesn't look like it, actually. He might be the only Isengard player not to have brought URUK-HAI. What's over here? Yeah, his general is a berserker unit by the looks of things. It's an interesting place to put your general. Not entirely wrong, though. So yes, that's all of the attackers. Now let's have a look at what the defenders are up to. So we have Chimera playing as Woodland Realms. We have Bobo 16k playing as his main, the Dwarves. And I know that Lothlorien are present because the walls were in their name. Regardless, we'll just go through all of their units pretty quickly because they're all going to be clustered together. Hiri Dirith, Ironfoot Guard. This is the second time in a row I've shown a Woodland Realm Dwarven combination, which is very ironic. Ironfoot Guard, Hiri Dirith, Ironfoot Halberdiers. Also got some crossbows over there to answer the Isengard crossbows, because the Isengard crossbows will be good against stuff like the Elder Royal Guard if they can get into range. One of the few skirmish units that can go blow to blow with the Woodland Realms skirmish line, to be honest, but the problem is the Woodland Realms have more range, so they'll be able to get more damage done more quickly. Hiri Dirith, Hiri Bang as well, so there's some lightly armoured archers and some Woodland Sentinels. The Woodland Realms, of course, very powerful, and the Dwarves, both of these factions on the defence. And then Son of the Dunedain playing as Lothlorien with some Silvan Heavy Swordsmen. So yeah, I think this is the three defenders. So no Rohan, sadly enough, but understandable considering they're not the best faction on the defence, particularly against Isengard, it must be said. Isengard have got a lot of nice tools to deal with a Rohan defence. We've also got some Dwarf Noblemen back here. Silvan Spearmen, the standard variety. Hiri Lang, Silvan Staff Masters. You don't see these guys an awful lot, considering that they're a kind of unique unit. They've got a very high base defence score, but very low stats everywhere else, and virtually no armour. They are very cheap. They're basically the ideal blocker unit for the Lothlorien Elves, but they won't get a lot of damage done, which is why most people tend to forego picking them. I've picked them a couple of times, and they've done okay, but they're nothing too special. And we've also got some Ironfoot Warriors, Ironfoot Halberdiers, more Staff Masters down here. And then back in the town centre, I imagine, is where their elites are all at. So we've got some Silvan Heavy Spears. We have indeed got the Guards of Khazad-dûm and the Mithril Guard back here. Some Galathrin Veteran Warriors. Some Woodland Warriors. Some Sons of Durin. Some Elder Council. Standard Silvan Axemen and more Elder Council. Woodland Warriors. Elder Palace Guard. Yeah, I think the defenders have actually got an advantage on this one, to be honest with you. With all of these elites, we'll see if Isengard can manage to push through all of this. I've heard it's a very close battle from beginning to end, so hopefully we can see some nice play. And without further ado, we shall commence the battle. And at about 40k frames, it's a little bit shorter than the previous one, but not by much. It has also started later, of course, because it's a little bit more difficult to deploy in EDORAS. But yeah, the skirmish that Isengard are going to be subjected to is going to be brutal. At close and long range as well, because of all of these elven archers providing the damage at long range, and then you've got the dwarven crossbows. So even when the URUK-HAI crossbowmen do manage to get into range, they're still going to be pounded by a unit of similar qualities to them. We also have the dwarves sort of marching down the hill. The Silvan Staff Masters pulling back. I think they realise that the job that they would have to do is too much. They're not defending this gate too close, and I think that's because they realise they'll get overwhelmed very quickly with all the rams. Meanwhile, on the other side, they're putting up a bit more of a thick defence. And it's understandable because on this side it's also thinner, so it's a little bit more easy to control. The catapult fire is coming in. This is not really the best target to go for, though. There are Elder Royal Guard down here. They did manage to clip a unit, which is always worthwhile. However, I always find that it's much better to target the catapult in this area up here, because there's always a cluster of troops up here, and you're always bound to get more kills doing that. And on Sindar Blade Masters and Hiran Ek, they're very damaging units and a very good holding unit that you'd be damaging. But yes, you can actually see that there is actually Woodland Realms skirmishes coming out here, and I think that's because CMT-19 is not really able to advance forward with his lack of rams. And the Hiri Bang and the Woodland Sentinels able to sally out of the walls and get some good skirmish fire down. Looks like he's actually going for the catapult. He is. This would be a big loss for Isengard already. And ironically, he's actually one of the few that doesn't have wargs, so if the wargs from the other side were over here, they would be able to charge down these archers pretty quickly and send them scurrying back into the settlement. But it's looking like the decision not to bring rams en masse and really go for a little bit more numbers and attack this wall pretty quickly is going to work against CMT-19 over here. These URUK-HAI crossbowmen also taking a real beating. There's a lot of dead bodies over here. You can see the Woodland Sentinels, very lightly armoured archer, but like all elves, they're very accurate indeed. These ram cutscenes are going to be a bit of a staple for the battle at the moment. And these Hiri Bang also firing away against the same target, I believe. Yeah, those URUK-HAI crossbows, they don't really stand much of a chance. They're trying to get into range. And when they do get their volleys off, they will do quite a high amount of damage. But even so, this is a lightly armoured skirmish unit. This is not really the sort of target you want to go after with your crossbows, considering the presence of all of that dwarven elite infantry at the back. So yeah, CMT-19's quality approach doesn't seem to be paying too many dividends at the moment. Finally, however, the announcer was about to say something there, but stopped himself. We can see that the wargs from both Tundra's Fox and Master Blaster are coming around here. There isn't any cavalry to be seen, so they are free to try and charge down these archers. And again, this could be... There goes the gate is also about to be knocked down, so prepare to see another little cutscene. There it is. So you can see that lots of holes, lots of gaps are being formed in that wall and gate over there. But over here, the defenders are having a lot more luck. Having said that, these wargs are about to get a nice side charge onto the Woodland Sentinels, who have already taken a lot of damage from the URUK-HAI crossbows. So when they get in range, very dangerous. And the Woodland Sentinels getting scythed through. They're pretty much gone already from that charge. And the Hiri Beng as well have got a bit of a lack of armour, so they won't be too durable in melee. But you also have the Elder Royal Guard back here. Very dangerous unit indeed, and the Warg Skirmishers are also on the way. But meanwhile, we'll go back over to here. We can see that these Ironfoot warriors holding their ground, but over here you can see that Bobo's dwarves are facing off against Tundra's Fox's Dunland veterans. Dunland veterans are armour piercing, but this is a bit too much work for them to do alone. Fortunately, however, they are going to be reinforced by URUK-HAI raiders. Just having these numbers here will help them. And these Hira and Ek are being targeted by archers. Not the best target because they are shielded. But the URUK-HAI archers are just kind of picked to be a bit of a nuisance anyway, so they were never really expected to get too many kills. And just getting a bit of hit point damage might be enough. But yes, this is just at the moment a single line battle going on. Let's go and hop over to the other side again, where the wargs still cycle charging by the looks of things, which is good to see. The warg riders. We can see actually that the warg skirmishers were being targeted. The warg skirmishers are a much more worthwhile target for the elven archers than the standard warg riders. Inside the settlement, the warg riders will be nearly useless if the defenders have managed to craft their line correctly. So it's worth trying to sort of screen his allies' advance here, because CMT-19 was going to struggle as it was. But Master Blaster, good teamwork here to send over his wargs. You can see that finally those rams from Numbers for a Face are arriving now, which is good. It means they'll finally be able to start doing on this side what they're doing on the other side. But those Woodland Realm skirmishers, they are so lethal, and they are now firing at the standard warg riders as they move forward. The URUK-HAI crossbows and the URUK-HAI archers are in range. I have to say, I do admire how aggressive this Woodland Realms player is being, at least. He sallied out his archers and he did a lot of damage, so that could pay off in the end. Now these Hiri-Dirith are out here. If he's, again, counter-charging as the wargs came was the best thing to do, but he really should try and get these Hiri-Dirith back inside the walls, because they will be a very potent weapon against Isengard. You can see here that the URUK-HAI crossbows trying their best. He's actually sent forward his URUK-HAI crossbows maybe a bit too far, and the Hiri-Dirith might be able to get in there. Meanwhile, at the, what is that, the southern edge of the settlement, or the bottom edge of the settlement, there are also a few areas you can get in which Tundra's Fox looks to be trying to take advantage of. Yeah, this single unit of Hiri-Dirith is making it a lot more awkward for these two armies to advance, and again, this quality approach is not really paying off at the moment. A single unit is able to sort of block CMT's advance. Not only that, but these Snaga skirmishers, which are a potentially very useful unit inside the settlement, are going to be engaged in melee by very skilled elven mainline troops. Unfortunately, the Snaga do realise what trouble they're in, and they do quickly scarper away. We have those Dunland clansmen. They do need to get some infantry up here, because otherwise this Hiri-Dirith is going to have it all its own way. These warg riders are coming in, a bit of a charge there, but that's a decent charge actually. Managed to get a few kills, and I'm grateful for this aspect of the battle, because of course EDORAS traditionally is quite grindy. Speaking of which, business as usual over here, I imagine. We have the Ironfoot warriors. Victory still seems certain for them, even though they are vastly outnumbered by these Dunland veterans. But that should flip over to the other side. Eventually the AP damage will start to take its toll, and there are also these standard clansmen which are going to block the reinforcements from these dwarven noblemen. Having said that, there are more Ironfoot warriors on the way down the hill. But this first line over here, the attackers have had much more success. These low tier troops doing what they can. These URUK-HAI archers are inside the settlement, firing, I believe, at the catapult. The catapult, in fact, it doesn't look like they've got much of a crew left. It might be, there isn't enough dead bodies around here, so I imagine they've just abandoned the artillery piece for now until the archers are largely gone. If we look over here, in the sunset, the Ironfoot warriors coming down to help reinforce the line, and it is needed because the Dunman veterans were doing a bit of work on the first layer of Ironfoot warriors. However, if we look here, the ideal dwarf killers are on hand to reinforce the attack, the berserkers. The berserkers, of course, much less ideal when facing off against elven archers, but here in melee, provided the elves don't turn their bows on these guys, they will do a lot of work against these standard dwarven units. A lot of AP, hit points, the only thing they really lack is armour, but against the dwarves that's not necessarily a bad thing. The dwarves rely on their AP and melee quite a lot. Meanwhile, if we look over here, the Woodland Realms player has managed to set up his Hir'enek in spear wall, which means Isengard are really going to struggle to get through here. Their pikemen would do it eventually, but their pikes would also probably get focused down. We've also got the Warg Skirmishers. The Warg Skirmishers would probably be a pretty good bet. The Hir-Elang are a very good target for the URUK-HAI archers to go after, because even though they're not very good archers, they will still do a lot of damage to these lightly armoured elven two-handers. The Sindar Blade Masters are a pretty similar story, and this is a pretty nice concentration of fire. Getting your value for money out of cheap archers is always a good thing. In 1v1s, cheap archers are pretty much the way to go, because you can still do that while having a nice main line, at least for the orcs. Less so for the elves, of course. With the elves, you want to spend all of your money on archers pretty much, especially the Woodland Realms. These Snaga Skirmishers coming up. Looks like they're going to try and get a volley of javies off into these Ironfoot Halberdiers. Ironfoot Halberdiers are very good at holding the line against most of what Isengard has to offer. Are they going to throw their javelins? Doesn't look like they are. Nope, they're going to retreat again. They can't really get a nice firing angle over that hill. What is actually going on over here? It looks like the attack over on this front has stalled out quite a bit. Looks like they are trying to sort of use their artillery to get maybe a nice hit. There's a grazing hit, one death from that Ironfoot Guard unit. But finally, Numbers for a Face is going to poke some holes in this wall. A little bit further away from the centre of the defence. If we look over here though, we can see that the dwarves did come down here to try and reinforce. The Warg Skirmishers' defeat seems certain, these Ironfoot warriors. Meanwhile, if we look over here, the Erebor infantry, something that I missed in the army compositions, going up against the berserkers, and the berserkers have got a real advantage in this fight. The Erebor infantry are, of course, they do have hit points, but their armour doesn't really help them too much against the massive barbed two-handers of the berserkers. And then, of course, we have just the over-reliance on the AP damage of the Erebor infantry, and of course against the berserkers, not going to help at all.
Only half our force remains.
Definitely a very potent unit against the dwarves, but Master Blaster, only half of his army remains apparently, and if we look at the percentages of kills, 11% ahead the defenders are, but of course you would expect that from a double elven defence. Later on they might start to struggle a little bit more. And if we look here, the Hir'enek still holding the line very adeptly against the URUK-HAI raiders, and they're going to break any moment. The attack on this flank, at the very least, stalled out very quickly, but how are the berserkers doing over here? Because I know they're in the mix somewhere. Well, defeat still seems certain. The Dwarven Noblemen, ooh, and that's why, under extreme catapult fire, and they've got no choice but to send forward another unit. The URUK-HAI infantry are not AP, but they are a very solid mainline unit. They are pretty expensive, but overall, as an individual unit, they're definitely the most solid of the mainline orc units. And now we've got some pikemen coming up, so they're trying to really push in with a lot of numbers here, and that's probably the way to go. The catapult is going to do a ton of damage if they're not careful. Well, if they don't get through this area very quickly, but again, oh, bit of friendly fire there. Again, that's a nice hit on those URUK-HAI raiders. The Ironfoot Halberdiers also probably turning around to try and help hold the line. There are the half-orc Baneguard poking yet another hole in EDORAS' outer walls. And you can see that actually Tundra's Fox, I believe that is, his catapult is firing up here. Ooh, and that's the perfect target. It's shooting into the town centre where all the elites are. If the catapult does a good amount of work there, it could really make the difference in the late game of this battle. And they need to thin out some of these elites, because Isengard's elites... Ooh, nice hit on the Silvan Heavy Archers. Oh, and another fantastic hit. Unfortunately, that seemed like it was mostly Staff Masters, but even so, a hit is a hit. Excuse me. Look at that. It looks almost like a glyph that these Elder Council have formed on the hillside. Yeah, that's a fantastic firing position for the catapult. And this presents a bit of a dilemma because the defenders can't really do much about this. They've retreated what they can right back into the town centre. That's ideal from Tundra's Fox. And they're going to need that, as I said, because the URUK-HAI alone won't beat back all of that elite Dwarven and Elven units that they've got back there. The Ironfoot Halberdiers still holding. Snaga Skirmish is also right there. You can see that over here the attackers have not really had the same haste that their allies on the other side have had, which is unfortunate. But Numbers for a Face is now entering the settlement with Dunland Clansmen, and he's also poking yet more holes in the walls with those rams. If we go over the houses, we can see that Half-Orc Vanguard is actually moving over here to help out his allies. And they're going into these Ironfoot Warriors, and with the Berserkers, these guys will very quick, and crossbow fire, these Ironfoot Warriors don't stand a chance. Going to very quickly be destroyed, although, honestly, the friendly fire from these crossbows probably not worth it at this point. Your Berserkers are going to be very necessary to break through down here. Although, down here, the line has started to break. The URUK-HAI archers that are out of ammunition are in melee, occupying these Elven Spears. And the URUK-HAI pikes, they're going to be very key in this fight. The URUK-HAI pikemen are one of the centerpieces of the Isengard army. And they're going to do quite well against the lightly armoured Elven units, provided they're backed up properly. Less so against the Dwarven units. The damage they do against armoured targets is not great. Look here, the Silvan Spearmen are also holding the hill, and the Silvan Staff Masters, and more Silvan Axemen. The Silvan Axemen will be very potent against Isengard as well. Oh, and that was a terrible amount of friendly fire on that unit of Kira and Ek. They are over here. We can actually see that the URUK-HAI are now in the settlement. URUK-HAI looks like they're taking some pretty significant losses, and the catapult hits them squarely, makes up for the friendly fire. You can actually see that Tundra's Fox's war skirmishers coming in. Javelins might be just the thing to start breaking down the defence on this hill. Of course, fighting uphill is also pretty bad for your soldiers. They'll fatigue pretty quickly. Tundra's Fox still has a decent amount of pikemen back here. Master Blaster's army has certainly taken a bit of a beating, which is unfortunate for him, because I do think his composition was a little bit more quality focused than Tundra's Fox's. Actually, it looks like Tundra's Fox has used up all of his jabbies, so he just tried to get a bit of a rear charge on the spears there. But the URUK-HAI pikemen are going to be victorious over here, but the pikes do get their work done very slowly. But the URUK-HAI are also in melee, and they do not get their work done slowly. They get their killing done very quickly indeed. Meanwhile, look down here, these Dunland Clansmen that are in Skiltron. You don't see Skiltron too much in Reforged. It's a much rarer formation to see. It was much more common in Standard Third Age. You can see that these Ironfoot Guard are going to take a bit of a nasty charge from these Trolls of the White Hand. And the Ironfoot Guard are not AP, one of the few Dwarven units that are not, of course. Oh, excuse me. And this does mean that they will take significant losses to the Trolls. Trolls also being backed up by some chaff in the shape of those Dunland Clansmen. And finally, the assault on the gate is underway. You can see that, look at all these URUK-HAI pikemen. There's a lot of pikes. I can just get a nice screenshot there. But yeah, the Ironfoot Halberdiers will still do very well against the URUK-HAI pikes, because they are AP. And the URUK-HAI pikes are not, so they will get their killing done very slowly against the Ironfoot Halberdiers, in spite of the fact that pikes overall have more effectiveness than halberds because of their animation. Halberdiers in this patch, though, are very, very strong, and the Ironfoot halberds, other than the Edelond Halberdiers, are probably the strongest in terms of cost efficiency in the game. We also have a lot of URUK-HAI infantry coming through here, trying to buckle the Halberdiers formation, which is the way to go. It will take away a good amount of their effectiveness. And over here, see, holding the outer walls, we have the URUK-HAI infantry trying to push through, and they're actually having some pretty decent success here. The only problem is they are taking some close range skirmish fire from the crossbows and the Elven archers, it seems. Actually no, just the crossbows. Yeah, the URUK-HAI infantry pushing in, and now being reinforced by an AP unit in the Dunland veterans. However, the AP will not help them against the EDORAS, which are coming forward to reinforce the line. Isengard having a bit more luck on this flank now. A lot of the reinforcements were committed to the other side, so they might have more joy over here in the shaded half of the map. The Ironfoot Guard and the EDORAS, they're actually losing to the pikes. Actually, I heard that it's the whoosh of javelins, so the Snaga skirmishers throwing their jabbies into the defensive line. And yeah, they're going to struggle to hold this line over here at this point, which is good. It's good to see. The attackers are going to break through on one front, which means they can start moving up the hill here as well. The Trolls of the White Hand still alive, amazingly. Trolls are usually a very flash in the pan kind of unit, but two of them still live. And over here you can see the Ironfoot Guard. Victory seems certain because they are up against quite a lot of trash. But they are holding back the horde here, and they will be attacked in the back pretty quickly, you would imagine. Let's go back over to the other side, see what how the hill is progressing. We can see here that, yeah, the sort of flank that the elves still held has buckled inwards a little bit, and now they're having to hold the line with a lot of their very light infantry, their Silvan Staffmasters and their standard Silvan Spears. Fortunately, the dwarves do have a bit of help here in the shape of the Khazad sentries. Those heavily armoured pikemen are going to be sorely needed to hold the line against this kind of numbers. However, it looks like the defenders are more interested in falling back at this point. I think they realise they don't have the numbers to hold back the other flank either, so they're going to fall back to the top and try and hold there. Yeah, here on the sunny half of the map, Isengard is starting to have a bit more luck as well. Now that the catapult is not in the ideal firing position, and the elven skirmishers seem to have held fire until the final stand, you can see, oh no, the catapult is in a good position. They've moved it, and that's very bad news for Isengard. The Nazkai are in here. Victory is almost a certainty for the dwarven and elven defence. Nasty. What's going on over here? The Ironfoot crossbows have fallen back a little bit to give themselves more breathing room, and they are firing. Also a few Hiri bang, emptying what's left of their ammunition, but down here things have turned against the defenders pretty significantly. They're being flanked all over the place, and it's really just the last stand of Hiri Dirith that remain. And the Dirith are a good unit against Isengard, but they're not going to survive against this sort of numbers. And there's more Dirith over here fighting outside the walls still, with the help of some Ironfoot Guard, but again they're being surrounded, and again not going to last too long. Meanwhile, if we look over here, we can see that there are actually some berserkers heading into the settlement. URUK-HAI infantry, they managed to surround these Ironfoot Guard, so these Ironfoot Guard will now start to drop. On the other side you can see the half-orc Bane Guard, which are AP as well, with their gnarly looking clubs. And there's also crossbow fire coming in, so Isengard are really able to leverage their close range power at this point on this flank. On the other side, however, things are not going too well. The Warg skirmishers that are out of ammunition, they might be able to push through at some point. Nice to keep them in reserve. This catapult only has 17 men left in the unit, but it's gotten quite a lot of nice hits so far. If we look here, this line is starting to buckle though. The Khazad sentries, there are only 40 of them remaining. The Silvan Axemen and the Staffmasters are not going to be sufficient to hold this line, unfortunately for the defenders. If we get in nice and close, we can see the iconic outfit of Isengard. I do like Isengard. I do feel as though they do kind of have the same thing with Dale, where they have one thing that they're really good at and they usually stick to it, which is, you know, they have a nice core of pikes and crossbows. But I was proved wrong in the tournament big time. The Dale were used to great effect and in a versatile way. Congratulations to Creed, by the way, for winning the Discord tournament. I don't feel so bad about getting pasted to you 3 times in a row now, though, because apparently you're the best among us for now. So I'm very grateful for that, at least. Meanwhile, these Ironfoot crossbows are being engaged in melee by the Warg skirmishers. The Warg skirmishers just being sent forward as a stopgap to try and stop these crossbows firing for as long as possible. Not a bad idea. The Warg skirmishers have really outlived their usefulness at this point, so you may as well just throw them in to try and do something where they can. These Ironfoot crossbows, are they going to fall back at this point? I don't know. There's still a good amount of work they could do, but these URUK-HAI crossbows are also firing into their ranks at this point, which is going to be bad for them. You can see a few of them drop with every volley, and you can see that these Dunland veterans are now free, and they're going to charge up the hill to engage the URUK-HAI crossbows in melee. With the support of the, not the URUK-HAI crossbows, the Ironfoot crossbows, with the support of the URUK-HAI crossbows, these Dunland veterans might actually have some success over here. Only costs 400 florins, definitely a nice cost-efficient unit that Isengard have to offer.
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men.
Indeed. And we can actually see now that pikes are going to join the fray as well. Pikes will be just the thing to help these Dunland veterans push forward. The AP damage combined with that very nice pikeman animation will do a lot of work. There's still one Troll of the White Hand alive, amazingly enough. And there's still a few here Edirith, but they're being hacked to pieces by high attack units like Berserkers. Meanwhile, if we look over here, there's still Ironfoot Guard remaining. There are a few, making their brave last stand, only 6 of them remaining. So that means that CMT and Numbers for a Face have breached, and they are now fighting up the other hill. So at this point the defenders do have to make a choice whether they're going to hold the town centre or whether they're going to try and hold these 2 choke points. Both ideas do have their merit, because you do have the hills, which do really help your units in melee, more than you would think. But also that means you do have to face the enemy from 2 directions, whereas the town centre, of course, is only the one. And perhaps your elite units will be enough. He's actually sending down some Here Lang to help. The Woodland Realms player is being... Actually, no, he's not. I was about to say the Woodland Realms player, I'll give him points for boldness in this battle. He's not been conservative at all, but he is now retreating some of his men, these Dunland veterans and the URUK-HAI crossbows coming forward to finish off these Ironfoot crossbows in melee. What about the other flank? This was the flank where Isengard were really being made to pay for every inch. And if we look, they have managed to finish off what remained of that initial layer of Silvan Axemen. The auxiliary layer has been committed now. And there are still a few Khazad sentries, still 17 of them. Of course, a pike-to-pike engagement does take quite a long time. I don't actually know. I'm pretty sure the pikes do get a malus when they're fighting. They're like the one exception where you don't want to be fighting with the enemy downhill with you with pikes. I think that's how it works, which does mean the URUK-HAI pikes are actually going to have the advantage here. They're actually sending forward another unit of Silvan Axemen from Son of the Dunedain, so they are actually quite eager to really bleed this flank of Isengard dry. They don't want to overcommit though, because they don't want to be surrounded, and that's understandable, because over here Tundra's Fox and Master Blaster have had a really hard time of it. They've had to deal with a lot of skirmish fire. Meanwhile, that is that Tundra's Fox's artillery piece? It is. So look, I'm going to assume he's going to try and sort of sneak some shots back into the town centre here again, which would be just what the Doctor ordered for Isengard. What's the percentages looking like? Oh, it's very close, actually. The defenders are ahead by 1%. Actually, no, they're not. It's dead even, which is not really what the defenders want to see. But having said that, the elite core of the elves and the dwarves is so strong that in a final choke point battle, I would still back them to win this. And if we look down here, we can see that it really is just like Isengard slowly finishing off some of these depleted units, which is really pulling the percentages back. And again, the URUK-HAI pikemen and the Dunland veterans are a surprisingly potent force when put together on the front line. The URUK-HAI pikes are protected by the Dunland veterans, and they're also given a bit of an AP edge. The pikes are actually pretty expensive for Isengard as well, so having a cheaper unit to go with them is often recommended. The Snaga skirmishers, I wonder if they still have ammunition. If they do, they will definitely be needed in the final push, and they should not be committed to melee. Every Snaga lost is a tragedy. Meanwhile, we're around the halfway point now, essentially. Sort of just before the halfway point. And at this point it's dead even, and I couldn't really commit to someone winning. I would still probably back the defenders because of those elites. The Elder Palace Guard just tear through the units. And I'm not sure Isengard, short of if they've got some crossbows that still have some ammunition, if they've got anything that can deal with that. Because really the Nazkai have already seen some battle. Oh, a nice mass push coming through here. It's a mosh pit. See some Silvan heavy archers. If they still have ammunition, they've got a nice shot that they could make, but I would definitely recommend they pull back at this point. The defenders don't really have much hope of holding these hills for too much longer against the angry URUK-HAI. That much is for certain. There's chanting going on there. What's that? What unit is chanting? Oh, it's the Berserkers, yes. I'd forgotten about them. I don't think they actually have the active chant ability anymore. They did at one point in Reforged development, but for the time being they just have the animation and the sounds. You can actually see as well that Son of the Dunedain committing forward to some of his Silvan heavy archers and a unit of Silvan heavy spearmen. So they have defended rather piecemeal over here, and I wouldn't recommend sending forward these units on their own, because they will just get pushed apart by Isengard. And the lack of armour means that these URUK-HAI infantry and the URUK-HAI pikemen are going to be able to do some serious work on them. Particularly with some skirmish support. Meanwhile, it does actually look like he's sending forward some more units to help out there. The Silvan heavy swordsmen will do some work. They're very damaging. But I do like that the defenders are not just death blobbing up. Makes for a more interesting experience, I find. Yeah, suddenly the Isengard advance up this hill has been stopped dead in its tracks. They're going to need some reinforcements. Do they have any? They've got some half-orc Baneguard. Tundra's Fox is actually sending forward some more pikes. He's got some slightly depleted berserkers that he can send forward as well. Meanwhile, if we look over here, the Dunland veterans were able to push past the URUK-HAI crossbows, but unfortunately this unit of Silvan Spearmen was right there to meet them. And so the advance on both hills has been stopped, and more reinforcements are on the way. What is that? Here Lang. Again, another arch unit that's out of ammunition. Very effective in melee, but perhaps more worryingly come the guards of Khazad-dûm. They will do serious work against an Isengard infantry corps. There's a lot of men still left for Isengard though. Let's see what the percentages are looking like now. Still dead even. Interesting. You can see these Silvan Spearmen victory seems certain. More reinforcements are probably needed to come up this hill, and indeed, numbers for a face is obliging. More Dunland veterans coming forward. Won't do quite as well against these lightly armoured elves, but it's still numbers. Oh, that was a bit of poor camera control by yours truly. These Silvan swordsmen are actually pulling back at this point, and they're going to let the guards of Khazad-dûm do their thing. And the guards of Khazad-dûm, of course, one of those two dwarven infantry units. You can see just how their mass works. They just push forward. It was almost like a concertina effect there. But Isengard are answering in kind. They're committing forward a lot more pikemen. The pikemen won't do a lot of damage, but they will prevent the dwarves from pushing too deeply into their lines. At least they should. You can see the guards of Khazad-dûm if I can find my words, they really don't care about pikeman damage, it seems. You can see that in a similar vein to earlier, the dwarves have just pushed down, and with the downhill advantage they have, they should do very well for themselves. URUK-HAI crossbows, if they still have ammunition, whatever ammo they can spare really needs to be poured into these guards of Khazad-dûm, because you'll scarcely get a better shot on them. And this is one of those elite units that you will need to deal with if you're going to have success in this map. Or this match, I should say. Meanwhile, on the other side, where the elves have taken up the slack, sending forward the Here Lang and the Silvan swordsmen, or spearmen, I should say. The balance of forces is evenly matched. Of course, the elves a little less survivable in this situation than the dwarves, but by the same token, they are more skilled. So a unit like the Dunland veterans will do next to nothing against these elves. If we look further back down, there are still URUK-HAI crossbows. There's reforming URUK-HAI infantry, forming up into tight formation, and they will probably be committed forward next. The URUK-HAI infantry are a pretty good trade against the elves. They're a pretty decent unit in their own right. They've got decent armour stats, so the spears won't finish them off too quickly. And they themselves focus more around, well, their sword and ball. So that means they're going to be better against lightly armoured targets, such as the elves. There's still that one troll alive down there. What a hero. There's still a decent amount of men sort of hanging around outside the settlement. There's still berserkers in the very distance, with trolls of the White Hand, another unit of them. The trolls could be just in fact, over here on this front, I would say the trolls would be just the thing to break this line at this point. With the support of the pikes and the URUK-HAI infantry, the elves would really struggle to deal with the mass of trolls. If you look back here, you can see reinforcements are ready to come, and it does look like the defenders have decided, for the most part, to defend the two hills rather than defend the town centre, which is a bold move. I like it. And these Elder Royal Guard, with their armour-piercing melee, they're going to be very good against Isengard as well. The Woodland Realms, of course, here in force once more. You can see that these... Is this the General's unit? Yes, it is. There's Dane. So the Mithril Guard being committed with the guards of Khazad-dûm, which essentially means the Isengard players on this flank need to go all in. Otherwise their line will get utterly creamed. The guards of Khazad-dûm have actually lost a few. I imagine that's from the crossbow fire. There is also a decent amount of AP damage in here with the half-orc Baneguard. There's a few Nazkai bodyguards still remaining. But yeah, I would absolutely say that it's probably because of the crossbows, and they are indeed reloading. Tundra's Fox sending forward his regular Nazkai as well, which is going to be needed now that the Mithril Guard are on the front line. Yeah, Master Blaster and Tundra's Fox have definitely had the less desirable path to take to the Golden Hall. And again, defeat seems certain for all these Isengard dudes, but the pikes will hold for a good long time. So this is the time for action on this front, and it does look like Isengard is obliging. That hero of a troll has been committed forward. and more URUK-HAI infantry. So the elves, you can see, this is the weakness of the elves. The Woodland Realms may be very strong, but they are still susceptible to pushing through with heavy numbers. And Isengard can oblige in that sense. A lot of their units are pretty heavy with all that armour, and they have the numbers that they can survive the attritional casualties that doing such a thing with does tend to cause. But over here we can see that Silvan Heavy Archers are also being committed. They may be out of ammunition, but still being committed forward. They just crush that defence though. And again, none of these units are particularly heavy, so they could be susceptible to the same sort of tactic again. The Silvan Staff Masters have got no armour, so they will be cut to ribbons in melee by some of these better Isengard units, including the pikes. You can see that these Hiri Bang firing just a few units, but most of their ammunition, in fact all of it, is going into the floor, so that's a real shame. And the Sons of Durin looming large. What's going on down here? The Mithril Guard wading in. Again, it's still dead even. They can't be separated. Again, the elite units for the dwarves on this side really doing a lot of damage, but on the other side the forces of CMT and Numbers for a Face able to just force their way through the light elven lines. There's Saruman in there. So the presence of the Nazkai should stabilise things here, and indeed the Guards of Khazad-dûm, there's only 22 of them remaining. So the combination of the crossbows and the Nazkai doing a good job against these dwarven units, but I do worry for the Isengard line. The Elder Palace Guard alone are worth a lot of men, and they do need some form of skirmish in order to take them on, I fear. These Half-Orc Bane Guard haven't done bad. They're still alive, which is much better than most lower tier Isengard units can say. And their armour piercing is doubtless chipping away at that dwarven HP. Meanwhile, if you look over here, yes, Isengard indeed are going for that mass. And I think, sensing that, the dwarves have come forward with some heavy-duty units. The Sons of Durin will do a ton of damage. So at this point, it's time for Isengard to stop trying to push through with mass, because the Sons of Durin, they've already done enough damage to the elves just pushing like this. The Sons of Durin will stop this advance dead in its tracks, so they're much better off just doing the damage as it were now. That one troll is still alive. Look at this guy, he's bloodied up. His mace is covered with elven entrails, which is what I like to see. Meanwhile, there's another unit of Silvan Heavy Spearmen coming down. I think they realise that if they don't hold this line, then their elite dwarves on the other flank, the Guards of Khazad-dûm and the Mithril Guard, will be quickly surrounded and squashed. So they are sending forward a much more comprehensive defence over here as well. These berserkers in the mix are not making things easy for the defenders, but the elves will do quite well against them. And you can see that the push has come to an end. The Sons of Durin standing strong there, and the Elder Royal Guard are in here now as well with some high damage AP melee. And the catapult is reforming. Meanwhile, if we look down here, what are the numbers looking like down here? The Mithril Guard still standing pretty strong, 53 of them remaining. And the Guards of Khazad-dûm, they're actually looking a little low, so the Guards of Khazad-dûm have basically fizzled out. The combination of Nazkai and crossbow fire has done its work. There's Saruman, 47 Nazkai remaining, that's a significant amount. They're going to do a decent amount of damage to the Mithril Guard with that. There's also 78 Berserkers in here, so there's a lot of AP damage over here. So suddenly on this front, it's looking like the more promising road into the settlement for the attackers. It is amazing how a battle may turn. Meanwhile, I heard that. That was, I believe, Tundra's Fox's artillery. Was it not? No, it wasn't. What is it then? Ah, I see. Numbers for a Face has sent forward his catapult. And he got a nice hit on those Silvan Staff Masters, but they should really be going after something. Oh dear. That was a brutal hit from the catapult. And again, at this point I would probably try and destroy the Lothlorien catapult, whether through skirmish fire or your catapult fire, because that is a blob which, as you can see there, that was enough to give them a 1% advantage. Unfortunately, most of the catapult shots, it might actually be a good idea to target one of these lower units down here, because the catapult arcs do tend to fling them over the settlement if you target the unit that's at the back of a line. So it is risky, but you know, you have to risk friendly fire at this point, because I don't think you're going to get through on strength of melee alone. Even with the Nazkai and the Nazkai bodyguard in there, it's still not going to be enough. The Elder Royal Guard and the Sons of Durin standing strong. Sons of Durin, I don't think they've lost a single man at this point. But now here comes the mighty Isengard push once again. Oh no, the troll's still alive. Get into the catapult, man. Oh dear, friendly fire. That troll getting into those Silvan heavy spearmen. So the Sons of Durin, look at that push from Isengard. That's impressive. In fact, the Elder Council pulling back, probably trying to get to their javies. Well, to the range where their javelins will be effective. The URUK-HAI crossbows firing presumably into the Sons of Durin because they've started to lose quite a few unit models. Yeah, what a push that was. CMT 19 and numbers for a face, making up for the fact that they were lagging a little behind their allies in the early game. Now they're really starting to make their presence felt. Not enough to rebalance the scores though. But the Mithril Guard basically holding the line all on their own down here. A single unit that's able to get into their back at this point would cause this line to crumble and allow what's left of Master Blaster and Tundra's Fox's armies to join their allies at the summit. Isengard do need to be careful they don't overextend themselves over here though, because they are really trying to get into those Elder Council, but there is a point where it wouldn't be worth it. The Woodland Warriors are coming out, which are a lower tier shock infantry for the elves, but they are still AP, so they will do a nice job against these depleted and not tired, amazingly, only warmed up URUK-HAI infantry. You can see that these Elder Royal Guard, it's not often that these guys find themselves outclassed, but that URUK-HAI mass has managed to bisect their formation, and now they're being singled out by Berserkers, by Bane Guard. Even the Sons of Durin are starting to struggle under the weight of numbers that Isengard are bringing. And the Nazkai bodyguard, suddenly the Sons of Durin are not going to be enough to hold this line. And the Silvan Staff Masters are not going to have the killing power to help them. They're just going to be here to sort of buy time and hope that the Mithril Guard can get as many kills as they can. What have we got going on here? And now the attackers, they momentarily were ahead. Now it's evened up again. Pushing through with that mass was a big moment in this battle. It could swing it Isengard's way. However, over here we can see that the Elder Royal Guard and the Woodland Warriors are going to butcher these URUK-HAI infantrymen and half-orc Bane Guard, which will probably send the percentages the other way again, which it actually didn't. This is a very close battle. This is the most interesting fight on EDORAS I think I've ever seen. And over here we can actually see that some Silvan heavy spearmen are down here fighting side by side with two Mithril Guardsmen, but yeah. Both Master Blaster and Tundra's Fox, or what's left of their armies anyway, is going to be able to join their allies at the summit, and they will be able to fight for supremacy. Still a few crossbowmen down here, but other than that, Tundra's Fox and Master Blaster fully committed, which they needed to do. I mean, they were facing off against Guards of Khazad-dûm and Mithril Guard and a litany of Elven units in melee, and it's going to take all Isengard has to offer to break through that. But break through it they have. And Isengard, things are looking pretty rosy for them at the moment. The only thing I would say is as soon as the Elder Council are firing and they're getting some nice javelin shots, the only thing I will say is Isengard will struggle against the Galatharan Veteran Warriors and the Elder Palace Guard mightily. These URUK-HAI pikemen, they are in loose, so not all of these javelins are finding their mark, but they're still savagely tearing into these pikes. And the pikes are going to be very key, because it would be slow going, but the pikes are one of the things they could use to hold the Elder Palace Guard in place. URUK-HAI pikemen, the staple of Isengard's army. Meanwhile, if you look back here, there is still a few. Actually got one friendly fire there. The Sons of Durin presumably are still putting up a bit of a fight. Only 6 of them remaining, but yes, they are indeed. And these Silvan Staff Masters also being cut to pieces by the arrival of the sunny side Isengard forces, as opposed to the shady side. And actually there is these Trolls of the White Hand, only 9 of them remaining. Presumably they've taken a bit of skirmish fire on the approach. That catapult still has ammunition, I think, which could be the key. He's also got a completely healthy unit of Berserkers and just a few things. It's going to be very close indeed. I wouldn't want to call this one, to be honest with you. It ultimately comes down to, I think, whoever can use their ranged power at this point in the most clever manner. And the Elder Council have certainly done a decent amount of damage. These Elder Royal Guardsmen and these Woodland Warriors, and now the Elder Council in melee. The Elder Council are in melee. Honestly, they do have hit points, but I've always found them to be pretty underwhelming in melee. But those hit points will still stall the Isengard advance quite a lot. And the Sindar Archers, which are out of ammunition, another unit with hit points, another skill-based unit which Isengard may well struggle against. this may well come down to being the final assault, the final choke point battle of this very interesting back and forth struggle. Numbers from face. Snaga skirmishers, they still have ammunition, I think, because they're holding jabbies, which means they should absolutely be using them. Meanwhile, these crossbows, the URUK-HAI crossbows, could be very brutal indeed. The other unit of Elder Council is throwing their javelins. I think because of the flatness of a javelin arc, they won't be able to hit these units here at the front, but they will be able to hit potentially some of the more dangerous units. Like, they could get some nice hits on these trolls of the White Hand as they approach. I assume that one troll has long since died, I think. Regardless, these trolls are getting into melee, I think. And that's definitely recommended, because it will mitigate some of that jabby fire that Son of the Dunedain is putting down on them. Numbers for a face, really getting his trolls in. I think he's actually going to try and push all the way through and get into melee with these Elder Council. He's going to make it with a single troll, which does mean they're going to get one more volley off. But now they're going to have to pull out their spears and go toe to toe with one of the best troll units in the game. And victory is a distinct possibility, but all the time they're not throwing javelins is more time that Isengard are going to be able to gain some ground in that melee fight, and indeed they are pulling back. You can see those Galathran veteran warriors with their swords out.
Only half the enemy force remains.
They are a fantastic unit in sustained melee. Definitely my favourite Lothlorien unit. There's a unit of healthy woodland warriors back here, and then there's the big guns, the Elder Palace Guard. We're into the final 10,000 frames, and this is going to be our home for the final 10,000 frames, I would assume. Lothlorien and the Woodland Realms fighting side by side, because I think that the dwarves are
has lost control of the city.
Completely gone. Thank you, announcer. So the dwarves sallying out with their elites, but unfortunately they weren't able to hold back the Black Tide. The White Hand banners going forth. And actually some of these berserkers getting in and around the enemy lines. Oh, and here comes the heavy hitters, the Elder Palace Guard. There are only 46 of them, but don't let that fool you. They will carve through these Isengard forces. The singular best infantry unit in the game at the moment. Even Nazkai Bodyguard won't be able to withstand them at this late stage. The Nazkai Bodyguard. Ooh, but that's a nice hit. Carving through those Woodland Warriors, getting some of those Elder Council, and getting a couple of Elder Palace Guard as well for their trouble. That was a fantastic cavalry hit. Cavalry hit? Catapult hit. Again, it might only been... Oh, there goes the general. Don't know whose general that was. Might only have been mainly on Woodland Warriors and Elder Council, but at this point the elves are going to need numbers, otherwise they will just be overwhelmed. Now the dual-ended glaives getting into melee. And with the Sindar archers, they should have the potential to hold here for quite a while. That catapult absolutely needs to hang back and wait for a good shot. If you don't wait for a good hit with your catapult here, the Elder Palace Guard may be enough to just halt your army in its tracks. If we look back here, this is all that they've got left. They've got a decent amount of crossbowmen left. What have we got here in terms of the percentages of kills? So yeah, it's dead even still, 92% to 92%, but I think the attackers are just ahead based on when it ticked. Got these URUK-HAI archers over here, we've got some Dundon veterans. There's still some resistance being put up out here from where they push through with their sheer numbers. There's one Silvan Staff Master still alive. And that is the danger of mass pushing. You will leave some enemy units in behind your lines, but ultimately here Isengard just had enough to keep following through and make sure that they held. Over here, this catapult needs to be very careful because it's the key to Isengard's victory here. One good hit at this point would be enough to give Isengard the win, I think, but if they squander it, that might be enough to send it the other way, honestly. There's a healthy unit of Nazkai Bodyguard coming forward, and there are these berserkers, 44 of them. There's these Elder Council, they're going to throw their jabbies, and again, throwing the javelins into the Nazkai Bodyguard might be enough to turn this again. See the catapult. I think that maybe if the catapult's out of ammo, this is not a bad idea because it is disrupting the Elven formation. And Isengard's best tool here is momentum, carrying through from those pushes they made earlier. Defeat still seems certain though. The Elder Palace Guard is so brutal in melee. Again, I think 3 of them have been killed in melee so far, and they've been facing berserkers and Nazkai. That was actually some friendly fire from one of the catapults back here anyway. Interestingly enough. You can see these Elder Council. The Woodland Warriors are also being committed forward. More AP in melee, more numbers, just to clog up the Isengard advance. There's still quite a long time in this battle to go, and there are still those Galatharan veteran warriors somewhere, which is another elite unit that they're going to have to push their way through. Can Isengard do it? Can the elves do it? I mean, it's still dead even, 93% to 93%. These Galatharan back here might be the key. Again, if we look backwards, a lot of the Isengard numbers at this point are not elite units. They do still have that fresh unit of Nazkai bodyguard, and they do still critically have some skirmish ammo, which they're going to need all of it to find its mark. I don't know. These pikemen are starting to get cut down. And again, they're starting to... These URUK-HAI crossbows are firing point blank. As soon as they run out of ammunition, they're going to need to be committed to melee to keep this assault going. Those Nazkai honestly might be needed to hold this line. The Nazkai and the Berserkers together might be enough to sort of collapse this flank, because the Elder Council will not be able to hold against them. There are some standard Nazkai in here, but I do think the bodyguard will be required. And again, these Elder Council are out of ammunition at this point, so there's no range threat at all. So that elite infantry is needed. There goes another Isengard general there, at the hands of the Elder Council. Answering my criticisms of their abilities in melee, the Sindar Archers still looking pretty healthy, the 44 men that are left. There are still some Elder Royal Guard as well. None of these units are pushovers. These crossbows that still have ammunition tragically are running into the Elven lines. Ooh. That mismanagement of the crossbows might cost them the match at this point. Isengard's crossbows and their catapult were the key to victory. I'm not sure if they can pull it off in pure melee. I mean, with those Galatharans still in reserve, how are the Elder Palace Guard doing? Still 32 of them remaining. They're just such beasts in melee. And they've been up against Nazkai, they've been up against Berserkers. Ooh. And one of them manages to get a kill on another one of the Isengard generals, who are dropping like flies at this point. The morale malus of losing generals in Medieval 2 is honestly not huge. Oh, the Isengard catapult. Getting a nice amount of the Elder Palace Guard, well, 2 of them. The rest of them I think were just sort of Elder Royal Guard. And that's another brutal hit on the Sindar Archers and the Elder Royal Guard. How are the percentages looking? Still dead even. That catapult from Numbers for a Face. I don't know how I'd go about choosing an MVP of this match, because every player has played pretty damn well. None of them have sat back. All of them have done good things. None of them have made any overly big mistakes. Even CMT's sort of lack of rams at the start ultimately didn't end up getting punished too harshly. If there were more Elven skirmishers on that flank, maybe. The catapult is firing once again. We're getting a little closer. They're going for these Elder Council and the Elder Palace Guard. Definitely the Elder Palace Guard are the things you want to focus down, because they are the ones. Meanwhile, the Galatharan veterans still sitting back, and we're entering the final 5,000 frames. What a battle this has been. This has been one of the better siege battles I've done. And amazingly, EDORAS doesn't usually produce such a fine fight. But yes, these Sindar Archers, the elves have just got too much skill in melee, so the crossbows and the catapult, I think that they're struggling to find a good firing position. These URUK-HAI crossbows, they're reloading. They're still reloading. If they get engaged in melee, it could be all over. They're firing their missiles intermittently. The pikemen, however, crucially for Isengard, their line holders, their pikemen, they're starting to really thin out. And that could spell disaster for them. Ooh. Well, a grazing hit, and all of the kills I think were on just the Elder Council, which are honestly the least threatening unit on the field right now, other than maybe the Woodland Warriors, unbelievably enough. At this point, I mean, the Galatharan are just sort of holding back just in case this Elven line does break, but if they do commit the Galatharan, it could honestly be enough to break Isengard. Isengard are running out of men. Even with this catapult, even with the crossbows, I don't know. They have Nazkai bodyguard remaining. Oof. Close range catapult fire. It's mostly grazing hits, but that could make the difference. URUK-HAI crossbows in melee. They do have Nazkai bodyguard, but only 23 of them. And I don't think that's going to be enough to carry the day, honestly. There are some Bane Guard in here. More pikemen, but they're all depleted, and there's no more reinforcements to come. Only crossbowmen, very depleted units of crossbowmen that could be committed to melee, and they obviously don't stand a chance against these elven units. And as we look here, still dead even. Unbelievably enough, but I do think that if the veteran warriors were to be committed at this point, it would break the spine of the Isengard attacking force here. Because the Nazkai bodyguard are really the only thing keeping this attack together, to be honest with you, and there's only 14 of them remaining. The Sindar archers have done fantastically well in melee. The other very high tier Lothlorien unit. Lower base missile damage than the veteran warriors, I believe, though. In fact, they might have more ammunition, though, I don't know. I have fallen out of touch with the stats a little bit. There went another Palace Guard. Palace Guard, there are only 18 of them remaining, but they've been sort of taking losses so slowly that I don't think Isengard have got the expertise left to deal with them, and now they're getting ever so close to the catapult, and I don't think the catapult has got any ammunition left. Actually no, the catapult has been engaged in melee by something. Actually no, they have. They're being engaged to melee now. With the catapult out of ammunition, I would say Isengard has probably lost this. Heading into the final 3,000, I mean, there's a few crossbows that still have ammunition. But they're going to be getting their kills so slowly. 17 Elder Palace Guard remaining. What about the Sindar Blade? No, not the Blade Masters, the Archers, only 15 of them. And crucially, only 8 Nazkai. And they're really the only threat to the elves at this point, and with those veteran warriors, which doesn't look like they're going to be committed by Son of the Dunedain, unfortunately. This battle may end without them present. And if we look here, yeah, the advantage has swung by 1% in favour of the defenders, and I think that that's probably going to be all she wrote. Unless they do have some sneaky units. They've got some crossbows, but nope, that's it. The crossbows could get some kills, but I doubt they're going to be able to turn this match around. See these Elder Palace Guards, 17 of them remaining, getting into these catapult crewmen. Catapult crewmen could not be more outclassed if they tried. Those mighty glaives. And you actually see that those 4 crossbows that were in behind the line were singled out by these very depleted woodland warriors and finished off. Come on, Galathrim. You're one of my favourite units, you should get in there. Grab a piece of this action. But yeah, I think that the problem that Isengard's front line had is when they lost their pikemen, that was their anchor that was really protecting them from taking too much damage from all of these high tier elven units. And when they lost them, it was all but game over, really. And they didn't have enough catapult ammunition nor crossbow bolt ammunition to really punish them, or at least they weren't able to deploy it quickly enough. They had a lot of depleted crossbow units, but they weren't able to get those bolts down range quickly enough, and ultimately that has cost them this. But the defenders have won again. How about that? In fact, thinking on it, I think that I haven't actually shown the attackers win in quite a while. How about that? Madness. What have we got over here? Dunman veterans. This has been a long one. What have we got here? Are these Galathrim going to commit themselves? No. They're just going to take it easy. They've done their job. Presumably. There's 2 Nazkai bodyguard taking on this woodland warrior. He doesn't stand a chance against such a... Oof. Brutal. But this is it. I'm amazed the lag hasn't actually been too awful either, which makes it more palatable to watch. In fact, the lag's been fantastic. I haven't really encountered any lag. If only all larger scale siege battles could be this way. Alas, you can't always have nice things. Yeah, these pikemen, they've been fighting for so long, but now they are doomed. Ugh. Brutalised by the glaive. And here come the Elder Palace Guard now. The last hope that was these very few crossbowmen getting torn asunder in melee. There goes that animation again. And yeah, this was good though. Isengard, could they have done much else? I mean, not really, I hesitate to say. Finally, here come the Galathrun veteran warriors. Now that the battle is won, they decide to commit themselves forward. There's still a couple of Nazkai bodyguard. They're just going to show their golden armour on the field to inspire what few troops are left. Look at all the corpses in the background. But yeah, it's difficult to deal with the Wooden Realms and Lothlorien with that much skirmish, and then to have the Dwarven crossbows as well. Marching into that is always going to be difficult. But potentially they could have, I don't know. Potentially, I think that maybe they could have used their crossbows a little bit more wisely. I think CMT's crossbows committed themselves forward too early, maybe outside the gates, but that's all I can really think of. Because they took some pretty substantial losses early on to that aggressive Woodland Realms play, which I did mention earlier on that boldness with his archers could be what wins them the match, and ultimately it might well prove to be the case, because a full complement of URUK-HAI crossbows could well have done some pretty severe damage to this line. As it was, the depleted units were not able to loose their bolts quickly enough, and that is ultimately what has led to Isengard's downfall here. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up what units remain. What other units are there? Oh, I see, there's a unit of 13 URUK-HAI crossbows taking a downhill charge from the Galathrun veteran warriors, finally earning their keep a little bit, and destroying some URUK-HAI with their swords in glorious melee. With their grossly incandescent armour, no less. But yeah, that's going to be it. We have reached the end. And so this might be the last time I ever show the classic version of EDORAS with the next patch, including the updated version made by WK. So yeah, that was a very nice way to send off the old map. And looking at this, Master Blast getting the most kills, Numbers for a Face getting the fewest, but I still think Numbers for a Face, with the way he and CMT instigated those mass pushes and used their catapult at the end, he nearly pulled it out for them. So yeah, I think that all the players played very well. CMT committing forward his crossbows into those Elven archers at the start may well have cost them the match, but ultimately it was still such a small mistake. And as the attackers, you're not used to such a small mistake costing you the whole game. The most kills from the defenders coming from the dwarves, committing forward their infantry very aggressively, doing very well. The Wooden Realms amazingly getting the least amount of kills, which is something you don't see very often. So Master Blaster's Nazkai bodyguard getting 302 kills in the mosh pit with the dwarves and the elves. Unsurprising, they're a very strong unit. The Warg Riders getting 100 kills, which, considering they didn't have to counter any cavalry that was coming out, that was very good. Chasing down those Elven archers and those Wooden Realmed infantry units that charged out the gates, doing very well. Numbers for a Face. See none of his units got a huge amount of kills. What did his catapult do? His catapult got 70 though, 70 on high profile targets, and really it was his mass that really helped push them through. So despite the lower amount of kills, I still think he definitely paid his way in this match. And CMT 19, his Nazkai bodyguard, doing very well. And he didn't actually have any Nazkai either, so that does account for something. The Nazkai doing very well here. Other than that, sort of standard kills across the board. And then Tundra's Fox, his catapult getting the most amount of kills and doing damage to their sort of centre, into their elite core in their town centre. I think that could have pulled it out for them, but in the end wasn't quite enough. If he managed to land a solid hit on the Elder Palace Guard, it could have been enough, but ultimately the Palace Guard just too strong in the end for the grunts of Isengard with their pikes. So yeah, I liked that one. That was a very good match in my opinion, and also it was snowy, so it was slightly festive. At least it was seasonal. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next, which will probably be another Horton scenario.